if you could just say your name, what tribe you're from, and what you feel your role here at Standing Rock has been.
Okay. My name is Madonna Thunderhawk. I'm Lakota. I live on my reservation, Cheyenne River Sioux Reservation in South Dakota. And I'm here and have been here at the camp, Ochete Shakoi camp, in support of all the water protectors.
And how has it been going? How long have you been here, and how has it gone?
I've been here since August. And it ebbs and flows. It's it's a village. But the population is, real transit. People coming and going all the time. And the winter's been really hard. Winds and storms have been fierce. Not unexpected. That's how it is in this part of the country. But it's almost like a waiting game for politics, national politics, which federal Indian policy changes with every new regime that gets in. So we also deal with the court system. And it's a constant battle for my people for treaty rights. And the reason for that is because our treaties are valid. They've been ratified by Congress, which makes them the law of the land, and which have been constantly violated since they've been, written. But that's just part of our history with this country. There's no reconciliation. I notice that word's tossed around a lot, when it comes to different issues pertaining to our people. Reconcile what? We never did have a relationship with this government other than genocide. So this is nothing new for us. This is just a historical event because the Great Sioux Nation, okay, Ochete Shakoi, 7 council fires. The Great Sioux Nation, in English translation, came together. And this hasn't happened for, since the Battle of Little Bighorn back in the 1800s. So that's why it's really significant. But our struggle to protect our land and water and resources has been ongoing since the invasion.
So I understand that a lot of historical events are passed down through oral tradition, through the telling of stories, and mothers and grandmothers teaching their daughters and sons about what has happened over the course of the tribal history. Can you talk a little bit about how you came to learn about tribal history in relationship to the U.S. government, and how you see that playing out today in your daily life?
First of all, we are colonized people. Federal Indian policy has dictated to us from how everything's going to be done, in other words. The original traditional way of our ancestors is long gone. The way of teaching and living. Because we're colonized, federal policy changed that. Through federal Indian policy, the family unit was destroyed by design. The federal boarding school system that started in the late 1800s. And since then, it's been a struggle to maintain what we have left, which isn't much, but we still are land-based people. And that's why our struggle is so unique in this country. Otherwise, we'd be just another group of poor people or a group of minorities in this country that's constantly battling for whatever, the American dream or whatever. But ours is unique because we are land-based. Most of the people in the western part of the United States especially. So that changes everything. I'm in my 70s, okay? So I grew up in the 40s and the 50s. And in those days, you did not talk about your history. You didn't talk about anything like that. You didn't complain about anything. Everybody learned English. I mean, most people were bilingual. English was their second language. All that, colonization that went on. Okay, and it was just a way of life. So whatever was left during those years was underground. Ceremonies. When I went to school, I spoke English. My grandmother said my grandchildren are not going to be handicapped because it's a white man's world. They're going to learn English. So English was my first language. And so when I went to boarding school, I was automatically, when I think of it, pushed into that role of spokesperson because I knew English. And the teachers all spoke English, and I heard them, and I knew what was going on. And they kept us separate from our siblings or the children that already had learned English. They kept them separate from us because they didn't want, most everybody's related, siblings and that type of thing, so that you wouldn't get together and talk Indian. So they can control you better if you stayed over here and all you heard was English until you learned it. So we were kept in first grade until everybody learned English. So some children were in there like 2 and 3 school years. So it was all a process of colonization. So it was never a blissful, wonderful, sitting around the campfire, stories being handed down. It was always a struggle. And a lot of our history was preserved by, ironically, a lot of the army, back in the 1800s, early 1900s, the army officers, they recorded everything. They wrote down everything. And I don't know, because they weren't accountable to anybody, they would even tell about the atrocities. I did this, and we slaughtered them, and we, killed all these children and burnt these camps, and they just wrote it all down because, that's who they were, okay? And then the Jesuits in our part of the country were dominant when it came to Christianity, and they wrote everything down, everything. And how the original family units were, and the respect and the place that women had. And how do we defeat this? The men have to learn to be in control of their wives and children and beat them into shape. But they wrote it all down. This is how it is. What do we do to change this? So all of that was written down. But we didn't know it. It was just for, archives somewhere, okay? But as the years went on, and our generation, when we were young, like in the 60s, is when the rest of the country, the young people, were the anti-Vietnam War. There was a cultural upheaval in this country. And everybody was in the streets. including us, because the federal government had a program called the relocation program. Get all the Indians off the reservations and send them into the big cities, and they'll disappear into the melting pot of America, and then we can just take the land. Well, it backfired, because I was one of those that went. And we saw the rest of the country, what it was like. And we saw also what all the rest of the young people were doing, fighting back. And most of us scurried home. It was pretty bad on the res, but at least there's strength in numbers, So it backfired, and we became more educated. We became what's the word? English word. Anyway, we became more I don't know what the word is. We decided we wanted to know, our own history. I mean, I went to all school years. I learned all about European history, European history, and how they dominated the world, and the United States history through the eyes of the Americans, and knew nothing about my own. None of us did. So we decided that, And how do we do that? We get control of our education. We start establishing tribal colleges. I mean, it was just, and we just went from there. But when you think in those terms, then we started learning that we have to be in control of ourselves. We can't always be, we know, what happened. The white society did this, they did that. But in this modern day now, we have to take responsibility. And we have to